Good evening, everybody. This is Tuesday, June 7th, 2022. It's a regularly scheduled meeting of the Marquette Township Board. It's just 6:31, and we're going to stand and say the pledge if you'll join us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Gotcha.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, roll call, Randy, please.
Trustee LaRue,
Here.
Trustee Winslow,
Present.
Trustee Everson,
Here?
Trustee Marks,
Present.
Treasurer Johnson.
Here.
Clerk Rattari's here, and Supervisor Durant.
Here.
Staff present is Manager Kangas. Superintendent of Public Works Lenny Bodinas is here. And our former manager and events committee member Randy Gerard is here.
Okay, thank you for that. Any public comment before we start our meeting? Anything in emails? Randy?
Nope.
All right, so we're approving, first of all, the consent agenda tonight, which includes approval of regular meeting minutes of May 17th, 2022, and special meeting minutes of May 23rd. We have bills payable in the amount of $197,628.97. No other committees or reports. I included the Marquette County Solid Waste Management Authority draft minutes and presentation for their public hearing on 5/16. And they also had, it's the agenda for the special meeting on 5/25. They're working on grants for PFAS, and they've got lots of stuff going on. Also, the Michigan Public Service Commission notice of hearing for gas, mostly surcharges from SEMCO, case number U-21212. So we just need approval of that.
A move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. For the rest of the agenda, I need to add 8A and 8B.
8A will be to declare the 2005 2500 Chevy Silverado as surplus. And 8B will be to purchase a 2021 Chevy Silverado and 2018 Chevy Colorado from Fox and Marquette for $65,338.
So I don't normally like to add these late minute things because nobody has a chance to look at them. The board just got them today, or just now in fact, so I'd appreciate somebody making a motion to amend the agenda.
I will do that.
I'll second
And my only comment would be is, I agree with the supervisor, but this is an emergency purchase situation, so this is the only reason we are doing this, because we are now 2 trucks down in our fleet, so it is kind of an emergency.
We don't want the crew standing out there with their
Well-
hands in their pockets.
We have work to do, and if you don't have vehicles, it's rough.
Yep, okay. Did we get a second?
Trustee LaRue.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Ernie?
Do we have to add anything to the trucks over and above what we have? Okay,
Well, we can talk about it when we get to the agenda.
okay,
item.
let's go.
All right, I'm not aware of any any conflicts of interest on this agenda. Let's start with our events committee car show update. Who's gonna, Randy start it off?
No, it's fine. I won't touch it. Well, good evening, board members. At the last time we were here, we said we would come back to you before the car show, which is on the 18th, and give you an update on where we are and see if you have any questions or concerns to address. For your information, we do have our final meeting tomorrow morning at 9:30, the Community Events Committee meeting, where we'll be finalizing the last of the details. We still have some things that are out there that may alter what I'm telling you tonight. But as it sits right now, we are estimating not more, maximum cost to the township of about $3,900 right now. That is the maximum that would be coming out of the $12,500 for this event. As I mentioned, we still have a couple of vendors that are out there that are being worked at the moment that may be contributing as well, that might reduce that dollar amount. But our maximum right now is $3,900. As mentioned, the car show itself is on the 18th, which is the Saturday of Father's Day weekend. We had 250 flyers distributed at the Escanaba Car Show. So we're hoping that that will increase the numbers that we have coming. Last year we had about 140 cars, 110 were registered, about 30 did not register. They made cash contributions as opposed to canned good donation. We'll be determining tomorrow which of the food banks that we'll be donating the canned goods to, and a couple of other administrative items, but we should be ready to go then for the 18th. Any questions or concerns that board members have at this point?
Pete?
What's the fee for registration, Randy?
Unusual for car shows, we do not have a cash fee. Basically what we do is we ask people to bring 3 to 5 non-perishable items to be donated to the local food banks. That's the registration fee.
And what's the deal about the tickets when they register or they come?
Registered vehicles, and this is one of the reasons that we had more cars than we had actually registered, is because they kept coming in later in the day and didn't want to register. It was after lunch. When a car registers, comes in the morning and registers, they'll be given a ticket. That ticket is good to get into the raffle drawings, and it's also good for lunch, basically. You get a free lunch if you register your car. And Super One is providing the food this year.
And is there food for sale then, I'm guessing, too? For
They are also, if you're not registering, or if you're just coming to visit, $5 buys you a lunch. It's a sandwich, bag of chips, pop, that kind of thing. They get the grill going, they're cooking. I think that burgers and brats this year they're cooking.
And it all starts at 10 o'clock?
Starts at 10 o'clock. I put a copy of the flyer at each of your stations to give you detail, basically, of what's going to happen when and who the current sponsors are that are on the flyer. That is the flyer that's been distributed at Escanaba and posted basically around the whole region, inviting people to come. Hopefully, it sounds like we might have some decent weather. We'll go from there. Yes.
Just a comment that a copy of the flyer was on Facebook and people were sharing it. So it's not just being shared as a flyer, but
Right.
an e-flyer as well.
It's on the township website. It's been on, each of the committee members have put it on our own Facebook pages and distributed it that way as well. Plus word of mouth. You may know or you may not know that there's another group that's going on here in the township that Jason McCarthy started. It's Cars and Coffee. And we met a week ago on Saturday, 2 weeks ago, 2 Saturdays ago. I already lost 1 week. 2 Saturdays ago, we met right here in the parking lot. We had about 25 cars show up for that, and those folks were all given flyers, and they've gone off in their own little groups and distributed those flyers as well. So we're anticipating a good turnout. And it doesn't matter what you bring. Doesn't matter. New car, old car, motorcycle. We've even had cars towed in. That are in process of being restored. So those are all things that people are interested in taking a look at. And we have a lot of just walk-ins that want to come in and just look at the cars.
You gonna say something else, Pete?
No, I wanted to mention about the motorcycle or trucks or stuff like that.
Just about anything that rolls or drives on, gets pulled on, pushed on, whatever.
Thank you for your report, and thank you for your continued support.
It's fun.
In the event of rain, do they have anything, it does look good, and we're hoping for that. Do they have an alternate date, or?
No, we are used to rain.
Okay.
I think, 2 times it hasn't rained? Usually right towards the end of the day, the rainstorm comes in off the lake. Last year was perfect. Weather was great. All of it. The people are really good about it. We watch the weather, and if it looks like there's something coming in, cars will take off. I mean, they don't want to get their cars wet and driving. This is a very unique group. They treat their cars better than they treat their family in some cases.
Water spots are tough to get out sometimes.
I mean, we have one fellow here in the township, a township resident, who comes over with one car, crack of dawn, walks home, gets his second car, brings it back, walks home, gets his third car and brings it back every year. And they are immaculate. You can eat off the tires. I mean, it's just, that's just kind of the way it is. And then on the other end, you've got what somebody would walk by and look at and say, boy, that's really junk, but somebody's working on it, and they're bringing it up, and 5, 6 years from now, it'll be nice and shiny and new and making all kinds of noise. But, yeah, it's, we go on rain or shine. Hopefully no snow. We haven't had snow yet. We have not
That
had snow.
gentleman, the only problem he has, if it rains, he's gonna get two or three vehicles back.
If there's a cloud in the sky, he starts leaving. So he's hoping for clear blue. But it's a fun event, and we have a lot of people without cars, that don't have a car in the event coming in. And it's a good thing for Super One. They cover their costs. They're volunteering to do this. They cover their costs with the additional, if somebody brings 2 or 3 people with them, well, you've got 2 people buying a meal then, or 3 people. The driver that registers the car is the one that gets the free meal.
And then the folks that just want to come and look, there's no fee for them.
No fee for them, and they can certainly, partake of lunch, and most of them do. I mean, it's a fun event, and it's a real casual type event for the day.
Are they gonna have a People's Choice this year?
We always do. We have a People's Choice, and there's we'll have some discussion tomorrow about maybe breaking it into categories and having, not just one, but have by category, have a People's Choice, the one that the folks are most enamored with. And that particular one will get a special prize of any number of things. We usually have about 100 to 150 raffle prizes that comes with the registration. You get a shot at it. Almost everybody wins something.
Is there any general area that the public should park at, shouldn't park at, things like that?
We have it in the Westwood Mall, so it's pretty much, there's the whole back part of the mall is open for parking. They come right through the mall, and that's one of the other things we try to do, is to get people to get some traffic into the mall, get in and take a look at some of the shops and some of the things that are going on. So, the restrooms are available there. The mall is very accommodating in that regard. So we have availability to the restrooms. We have additional parking available. We have the show area is cordoned off, so it's only for the cars that are coming in and registering.
Just be respectful of Applebee's,
Mm-hmm. Don't want to encroach on their business, so. Other than that, I didn't really have much for you. We are working on the next 2 events already. We're working on the Community Day in August, and then working on the Christmas event, and making some decisions early on in terms of what we'll be doing with regard to foliage, let's put it that way.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Good.
Good,
Thank you.
thanks, Randy.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
See you there.
Yes.
Okay, next up, we have a presentation from Stantec, Water Affordability and Planning Study. There are lots of numbers in this presentation.
Good evening. I'm Jim Behrman from Stantec Financial Services. I'm actually a resident of Brimley, so I pride myself in being a UP guy. My mother was actually born and raised in Newberry. I am a Lake Superior State graduate just a couple years ago, in joking. But I appreciate the opportunity to kind of present the results of the water rate study that we did for the township. You have a number of schedules in your packet, okay? I'm going to simplify things for you. Basically, there's 10 schedules that have a whole slew of numbers, right? Mm-hmm. Essentially, what these all represent, and through discussions with Len and others in the township, was basically to take your beginning fund balance on the water side, receive data from the township, budget data, and then also historically actual spending versus budget data. So that we call it an execution percentage We don't want to set rates based on a budget if historically the community we're dealing with has not fully spent certain aspects of their budget, okay? But you basically have beginning balance. I'm going to speed through these schedules. I'm be very happy to answer any questions you may have on the numbers, but just kind of give you kind of a quick overview of what you have in your packet. So basically, you have your beginning fund balance, you have your assumptions. Assumptions is Schedule 1. Assumptions is basically growth, right? In the study, we assumed 0.5% growth in equivalent residential connection, because typically what we see, predominantly due to the new fixtures and such and the efficiencies, we actually kind of see declining water use in some instances. So working with Len and others, basically we assumed a 0.5% growth each year in equivalent residential connections. You have about 1,100 accounts in your system. And then we assumed as well that water usage, because of the growth, would remain flat through the projection period. So we projected out for 10 years. You'll see all the columns on the sheets have 10 years worth of projections to get you out to fiscal year 2021 numbers. Cash inflows, cash outflows, capital improvement plan, and ultimately kind of what we call the summary panel, which is on Schedule 7. And then go through Schedule 10, which is the funding summary by source, okay? Like I said, I'm prepared to answer any specific questions you may have with that. We probably had, Len, probably 8, I'm going to guess, interactive meetings throughout the process where we had questions, we exchanged data, we said, are we assuming this correctly? But now what I'd like to kind of do is just kind of go to the presentation itself, which is on the back end after the 10 pages. And just kind of give you the kind of the highlights, key points. Like I said, I'm prepared to address any questions you may have on the specifics. My wife always tells me when she looks at those series of schedules that makes for good bedtime reading. But it's a necessary evil, because really what we're trying to do on behalf of the township is whatever recommendation we come up with as what you should do with water rates, it needs ultimately to be defensible. Nobody likes to raise rates. In this case, as you probably already looked at, you're in pretty good shape. We're not doing that, or not recommending that. But we have to go through the process and build step by step by step the expected spend over the financial period, okay? So what I want to chat with you now, and I'm on kind of the second page, just kind of the agenda, at least from my perspective, talk a little bit about the background, some of the assumptions, the different scenarios we looked at, talk about any potential bill impacts. In this case, there isn't any, which is a good thing, and then just be prepared to answer any questions that you may have. So I think you're probably all aware that from a positive note, the township received an affordability and planning grant from Eagle in the state of Michigan to conduct, in this case, a rate study, a planning session to look forward, okay? Not every community that submitted a grant request received a grant, okay? So that was very good news for the township. I think I met with John and Len and others about a year ago, roughly, once the township became aware that they received the grant. The good thing is about the grant is it covers 90% of our fees to do the study. Unfortunately for the township, Eagle I would say for whatever reason, but I believe it was, the engineering analysis side of assessing your water system and developing an asset management plan. Eagle did not grant that aspect of the grant, or did not approved that aspect of the grant request. UP Engineering and Stantec submitted kind of with the town, jointly on the township's behalf, which was unfortunate for the township in that regard, and UP Engineering. As you know, you provide service to about 1,100 accounts, and not only, purchasing water from City of Marquette, you also have some water production wells, and obviously then you need a distribution system to get it to your customers. So next I'd like to turn to kind of our assumptions, financial planning assumptions on the expenses. We started with the fiscal year 2022 budget. And when we talk in terms of expenses, in terms of a study, it's more than operating and maintenance expenses. It's also being sure that your water revenues are adequate to cover the cost of your existing debt service payments. Also covers capital improvement plan. You may have seen in the schedule CIP, capital improvement plan. Those are asset replacements. I'm disappointed to hear that your added items today and talking to Len and John about, your truck issue, right? But those are the types of things that fold into a capital improvement plan. And then we also assume, because of your fund balance, that you don't have to borrow anything, right? You can use operating fund cash to pay for your operating expenses and your capital improvement plan projects, which I'll touch on in a bit, that are in the plan. When we do expenses, operating and maintenance expenses, we break them down into categories such as personnel services, healthcare, chemicals, electricity, because we escalate them at different rates. Remember, we started with fiscal year 2022. We're doing a financial plan out through fiscal year 31, okay, a 10-year period. And so we work with the client, talk through it with every client, and so personnel services were escalated at a certain percentage, okay? Healthcare, as we all know, typically is greater than kind of general inflation. So we factored that into the analysis. And likewise for the not personnel related O&M, but kind of your normal ongoing maintenance type activity as well. Also, we have to assume, because you have existing debt, you have a certain debt principal and interest payment each year for each component of your debt. You have a large chunk of your debt falling off in 2020, at the end of 2025. I think it's $250,000 debt aspect, which we factored into the plan. Okay, I mentioned on the revenue side, we assumed the ERCs, equivalent residential connections, will grow at 0.5%. That's a pretty conservative growth rate, because we're trying to forecast revenues out. So we're not only looking at your existing revenues, but we're also trying to figure out, okay, what is the growth or decline in accounts, as well as growth or decline in usage by your accounts, okay? And obviously, growth assumptions are very particular to each individual township or city, okay? You get downstate where you get in some of the poorer communities, right? I mean, they're losing population, people are leaving and so forth. So in the township's case, the 0.5% rate for growth, we discussed with Len, validated with him, seemed reasonable to us, okay? Hopefully you'll beat that, because if you beat that growth rate, you'll have more customers paying water rates than what is assumed in the study, okay?
May I?
Yes.
How far back, what numbers did you use how far back did you look at figures to see what you know, like 3 years, 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah, typically we're in, I'd have to go look in the model specifically, but I want to say we were back 4 or 5 years at least. We try to go far enough back to get kind of an idea of what has transpired.
Okay.
Okay? So, one of the items that we always deal with in terms of a rate study is what should be the reserve levels for the operating fund. From your operating fund, when we build the financial plan, it's set so that you do not drop below 6 months of annual O&M. Okay? Generally, we see 3 to 6 months. I tend to err a little bit if it's not putting rate pressure on customers. I tend to err on the higher on the 5 to 6 month range. Why? A lot of communities get water main breaks. It gets pretty cold up here. If you get a real deep frost table, I suspect in the past at times you've had a lot of water main breaks just because of the depth of the winter freeze, right? And that's not something that typically is planned for in your operating budget, okay? So the financial plan that we set reflects 6 months of annual O&M expenses as what you should keep your operating fund balance at, okay? One of the things we always look at too is do the revenues and the expenditures kind of mirror each other year by year so that you don't have a big spike in expenses when your revenues are here, okay? So that's another point that we touched upon, and the township was in excellent shape in that regard. The next slide is kind of an idea of operating and maintenance O&M existing debt forecast. May not have come through in your colors real well, but you'll see that, you know, through fiscal year 2025, you're in the range of $1 million in the water fund, and in total, okay? And then you'll see in 2026 that you drop to just a shade over 800,000. That's because the component, the $250,000 debt component falls off of your needed revenue amounts. And you'll notice that we have the, you know, the escalation factors there on the side of that graph. Salary and wages, again, in talking with Leonard and others, we assumed a 3% growth rate from the fiscal year 2022 budget in salary and wages. Health insurance, we assumed 5%. Repair and maintenance, we went with 3.5%. Fuel, utilities, and chemicals, we typically always see something higher than, well, prior to the last few months, the normal rate of inflation. And so we assume 5 months in there, right? Now, obviously, with gas being $5.19 a gallon, you know, that's gonna put some pressures, I'm sure, on Leonard and others, right? Particularly as it goes forward. Will gas remain at $5 a gallon? I sure hope not. But again, if you get back to the 6 months kind of cushion in the operating fund, right, it gives you a cushion to kind of deal with these kind of items that just appear, right? Yes, sir.
I have a question on this O&M. You're talking about health insurance is 5%. Are you using an average for a number of years to come up with 5%?
Yeah, it's typically what we have seen, okay, kind of with our industry experience. You know, we do rate studies all over the country. I'm based in Michigan, but our group does rate studies all over the country. And typically, as we look at kind of the benchmarking of our utilities that we deal with, 5% healthcare seems to be a good number. Will yours be specifically 5%? Maybe not, but that was something we did validate with Leonard and others in the process as we went through it, right, is that a reasonable assumption? Because, for instance, I'm assuming, as I recall, you do not have a union. Okay, I'm sorry, I stand corrected then. But, a union contract has specifics in it through the term of the contract, right? So we want to be sure that we factor that in as well. And we talked with Leonard about that to make sure we were comfortable with escalating it, the healthcare at 5% or the wages at 3%. Okay. The next item I really want to kind of talk about is the capital improvement project. It's on the back of the operating and maintenance existing debt forecast. We had a lot of discussions about this with Len, because we knew coming into the project through discussions early on that township was kind of trying to feel its way along and really kind of develop a more robust capital improvement plan. All right, and you can see there, over the course of the 10-year planning horizon, you're about $3 million in capital improvements. Okay, 800,000 of that is related to the Cox generator, ATS, that's approved for fiscal year 2024. We worked with Len to kind of, I'm an accountant, okay, I'm not an engineer. So when I work with clients, a lot of times they'll want me to solve the model, say, well, how can I minimize my rate increase? And I kind of come back to them and say, that's not my place. We can solve the model once we figure out what we need to do from an operating perspective and capital improvement planning perspective throughout the financial period, right? So we worked with Len and discussed and came up with the capital improvement plan that was reflected in. You'll notice, for instance, there's service trucks, right? Starting in 2023, that we talked about and discussed that with them. So then we also, because of, frankly, the health of your fund, we also, starting in fiscal year 2025, put in $100,000 of CIP and just basically said it's a future CIP number that far out you may not be able to anticipate your projects, right? It's a good position to be in to be able to add that type of thing so that for unforeseen things. You got a couple of them that were added to your agenda tonight, unfortunately. But so that is in there as well. And so at the end of the day, the results of the model get you to what I call the summary panel, which is probably the document I discuss most with elected officials. And what it shows is, again, it assumes a 6-month operating fund balance. It assumes the capital improvement spending that we just discussed through each of the years. It assumes that the CIP is all cash funded. And it shows that there is no need for a rate increase. Your current rates will be sustainable for the future. Now, having said that, we've also, in fiscal year 2026, you have a debt service fee component of your water rates that the customers pay. We have assumed when the debt service falls off in 2026, that $250,000 debt, when that falls off, we have reduced the revenues accordingly. In discussions, it suggests that if other things happen 5 years from now, right, and perhaps you may have something unforeseen come up, maybe all your trucks need to be replaced or whatever, it gives you an option to leave the rates of, the $43 per month. You could conceivably leave that the same in fiscal year 2026, but backfill it with the implications of the debt service falling off, but some additional obligation coming up, okay? But for purposes of the financial analysis, we assumed that the revenues would fall off as the debt service fall off from the debt service fee component, okay? Just to balance those. And you're in excellent shape as a fund. I have concerns that I express to all the clients I deal with everything that's going on in the state of Michigan, with water quality issues, with lead and copper pipe replacement potentially, or whatever else may come up. It's pleasing that the township's water fund is in the situation it is. Because if, whatever happens in the future, may put further pressure on the funds and cause perhaps a need for rate increase. But I can't anticipate those right now. I just know, in the last couple of years, when you think about, well, we got through Flint, then Benton Harbor had an issue, then lead and copper replacement came about. I don't think that's been too much of a burden for the township. I have other clients. In the winter months, I live down right around the city of Jackson, and they have like a $40 or $50 million lead and copper replacement need in a community, in a city with declining population. So you can imagine kind of the things they're in. But so I just wanted to say that your fund is in extremely good shape. I'm pleased with that, because nobody likes to raise rates or recommend rates need to be raised. But I feel this is a good financial plan. It's been vetted countless times with Leonard and others, and where we actually share the model, right? The financial model is an Excel-based model, and it has a series of tabs underneath, whether it's expenses or revenues or CIP or debt service, right? So when we requested data from the township, it was all plugged in there. Again, because we need to be defensible. If by some chance somebody sued the township over their water rates, how did you justify the water rates that you're charging, right? There's support in this study. And you would probably have me testify on behalf of the township as to how we did the study following industry practices and so forth. And we pride ourselves in that, right? Because we don't want the township to have any issues. Obviously, customers don't like to see anything raised, but sometimes you have to. But in this case, you're in very good shape financially. I appreciated the opportunity to do the study, appreciated the support from Lenny and others in the township, because I know when you do a rate study is my job, a rate study is not his job. He has his normal job. And so we're asking for financial information, we're asking for the budget, we're asking questions, have we validated this correctly? So with that, any questions for me?
Can you explain the very last part? It says status quo, no rate increases.
Yes.
I don't know what your acronyms are. Senior lien, DSC, there's zeros all the way across, and then all in,
Yeah.
it jumps up. like
Yeah,
you said.
DS, I'm sorry, and yeah, sometimes we use acronyms when we shouldn't, but DSC is debt service coverage.
Thought so.
So one of the, we always, when we build a financial plan for a community, we're always making sure that if you have debt service coverage obligations in your financing covenants, right, with the entity you borrowed the money from, that we're not doing anything that's gonna cause you to fall below your debt service coverage and go into default. Okay?
Okay.
So that's what the numbers there mean. If I had the model up and running, and if you had a debt service coverage issue in any given year in the financial plan, it pops up red for us. And we look at that and we say, well, that's not gonna work, right? Because we don't wanna get you in a default situation, so.
So the 1.84 for last year is a percentage? Is that correct?
It's-
It's not a dollar?
No, it's 1.84 times the debt service coverage obligation that you
Okay.
have.
Because there's a shift in 26, like you said, after the other debt goes off in 25.
Yeah.
So we have talked about possibly incurring more debt once that drops off and just keep everything the way it is. And you said at one point that when you made a reduction to revenues when you saw that the debt was coming down.
Because a component of your rate structure is the debt
To cover
service
the
fee.
debts. Okay,
Okay, now that's the assumption we made in 2026. That's why I mentioned earlier that if something changes, like perhaps a major capital acquisition or an investment, that would certainly be up to the board to decide, okay, do we leave rates where we're at in light of that future expenditure that is not planned in the current financial plan.
so the only way we can keep that $43 bill status quo for the 10 years is by not incurring any more debt. Because if we did end up,
You don't have to keep, I mean, if you were to not incur any additional debt, not make any capital purchases greater than what we have in the plan, and left the rate at $43 in total, your operating fund balances here that show in the upper left of the summary panel page, you would be up in here, right? And then you would likely face the risk, in my opinion, of the residents coming forward and saying, why are you carrying such a high fund balance without a plan to spend it down?
because I think if we do this investment in 26, or even, start the process in the next couple of years, like Randy has even said, we wouldn't do anything until that debt drops off so that we could keep it status quo. So
Right.
that's gonna end up changing the revenues. I mean, we'd have to.
Yeah, I mean, you always have the option, not that I would necessarily recommend it, but depending on what transpires, you would have the option of seeking additional debt, right? But clearly, I would think you would want to fund an unknown project that's not included today with that additional debt, right? So most entities, if they can avoid debt, they do. But if you get a project that's a very long-lived project, meaning, let's assume you buy some water from the city of Marquette, right? Just assume for the time being that the township owned the water treatment plant, not the city of Marquette. You owned and maintained your own water treatment plant. Well, if you had to make major renovation to that water treatment plant, it's probably not fair to charge your current residents to pay cash for something that might extend the water treatment plant's useful life 30 years, right? You're gonna kind of want the customers over the 30 years to pay for the renovations that you make. I'm not saying you couldn't do it, but typically it's not done. If it's a major asset renovation, it tends to be debt funded. And then, you know, you're paying for it over 25, 30 years. And that benefits the customers for 25 or 30 years, right?
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Okay? Any other questions for me?
John, did you have any comments? Lenny, do you want to chime in, or?
I guess I just want to say the results of this study do echo what we've been seeing and saying during the budget process the last couple of years. And kudos to Kirk and Randy for the efforts that they made and the department up to this point in getting our water fund as stable as it is, in a secure position, not in a barely break-even position. If we can self-fund our annual CIP, we're doing a lot better than, let's call it, our competition. So.
Surrounding municipalities.
Right.
Yeah, you're very atypical in a positive way from what I typically see. You know, I'm sometimes having to sit before your counterparts and telling them they need a 10% increase, right? And that's hard to stomach for a lot of residents. It really is, but sometimes when you haven't raised rates in the past or you haven't maintained your system, then it comes back at some point, if you will, you gotta pay the piper. So, I'm pleased to be able to sit and, you know, present this message. That we built this, yeah, we validated with Len and, you know, staff and everything else, but I mean, it's kind of what we do. So, you know, we built it and it's like, boy, this is really a sound water fund, which we don't often see.
Randy?
Well, I guess my only comment is if this is in the packet, so any of the residents that are, wanna, you know, you can follow the presentation online with the packet that's online. And this is only the water fund, so the $43 is only the water portion of your utility bill. It's not the wastewater or the solid waste. So it's the water fund. Wastewater and solid waste are two different animals, so, because our wastewater fee is usually almost double of what the water is, just because of the amount of customers and such, it's different than the water. So that's not saying wastewater wouldn't incur any other fees in the future, but at least the water fund is where we need to be for the foreseeable future, which I'm pretty happy. Because I remember sitting here 8 years ago and arguing with the board about 5% increases for 3 years. And, well, Ernie was here, Lynn was here, I think John Marks was here, Linda was here at the time, a few times, and it was tough to stomach at that point in time. But we didn't go very high, we went incremental. And I think because we did that, we're in a lot better shape than a lot of our surrounding communities at this time, and this study proves it. If we don't incur major projects or debt, I mean, we could realistically keep the water rate where it is for the next 10 years, which is, in this day and age, is really, I think, a good job from this board.
John, where's our, and maybe this is catching off guard, but where's our fund balance right now? How many months? Do you have a rough idea?
I couldn't tell you that off the top of my head. I
Yeah, I
apologize.
know that's not fair on water. If it's 3 months or 3, because we've kind of gone back and forth on.
We've got way over $1 million in fund balance. How much of that's available is something else in that too, so I'm not sure.
Through this year's budget cycle, Lenny and I are hopefully going to finally present that information in a understandable format, so you know how much of the money that's sitting in that pot is earmarked for what. How much of it is our rainy day 6-month reserve for operating, and then how much of it is for anything else, CIP, emergencies, whatever, right? Because you don't want to look at your reserve fund only as your emergency fund. It has to cover all those other things that we talked about here as well, including the CIP, which is the most expensive part, aside from your annual operating and maintenance costs. So there's a whole bunch of factors in there that go into your annual budget, but also should be considered in your reserve.
This is on the April 30th balance sheet on the water fund. We have right now cash and investments of $3,286,000. Now, that does not take in consideration any of our outstanding debt we have to go with, but we still have that dollar sitting out as far as in April. That stays fairly constant, goes up and down a little bit, but it's been staying constant and going up a little bit and that. But it's the same thing for the wastewater. And April 30th was $2,365,000 for both cash and investments and that. So you got some of the restricted dollars out of there, you have to come out of there, and your normal costs too. So if you go back in time and look at the balance sheets for a number of years, you'll find out that doesn't fluctuate that much. It's staying up there pretty even in that. It's gaining a little bit, but not a lot in that. We're holding our own very easily in that too. So
I guess I should have clarified that. We passed a motion a few years ago that said we were going to have 3 months operating in water and 4 in fire department or whatever. I can't remember what they were, and that's what I was more looking for. Do you know if we have 4 months or 5 or 6? Okay, that's fine.
We'll figure that out soon enough, though. The budget sessions will begin here in about a month. It's already June, believe it or not. So we'll be getting a handle on that soon enough.
Okay. I just thought I'd ask, because I know we've dipped down a little bit on some of them, whether it's public works or
Yeah, water fund
fire or whatever, I
had
can't
sunk
remember.
a little bit, and we were on the rebound as I came in the door, and I think we're back to a stable setting again. So now we just keep an eye on that, make sure we're staying on top of our CIP. If we skip our CIP expenditures for a couple of years, that number can jump up, right? Because we're not spending.
And we did for
We
1
don't
year.
want to give people the impression that we took too much of their money. It's sitting there waiting to do the projects we didn't do this year or last. And quite honestly, right now isn't the time to be rushing to do any more CIP projects than necessary because of supply chain issues, inflation, all the other things that we're all struggling to deal with on our own. So I can tell you, though, we're still plenty busy.
Lenny, do you want to add anything?
No, John pretty much summarized everything pretty good.
Okay. Any other questions?
Well done.
lots of information, try to.
Well,
consolidate.
thank you for your time. If you look at it, and, I mean, Lenny knows how to get a hold of me. You know, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and, you know, we'll help you address them and help you understand. But again, it's good news. Because more often than not, I sit in front of boards or city councils, and the message I have to deliver is not as pleasant, let's put it that way. So,
You're the good guy tonight.
what's that?
You're the good guy tonight.
Oh, well, I try to be, but it, you know. it-
Otherwise, we'd blame you.
Well,
anyway.
it is what it is, right? I mean, because your water enterprise fund, or your sewer enterprise fund, or your general fund has to be sustainable as you move through time, right? Whether you're on the board or not, who's ever on the board 3 years from now, right? They're gonna deal with the same issues and the sustainability of all the funds. So that's what we try to do, is help you get your CIP needs taken care of, your operating expenditures, cover your debt, and develop a financial plan that has revenue sufficient to cover your needs. So, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
For all your hard work.
Might I just piggyback one last thing on
Sure.
what Clerk Rattari stated? This is only the water portion of your utility bill. It's not to say that we just swept away the issues in our solid waste fund, right? There's continuing pressures there from multiple angles that we really don't have a lot of control over. So the more we can keep some of these funds stable, the easier it is. It's never easy to ask for more money, but if we need more to continue operating or providing the service that's expected, we do have to raise rates once in a while, and that's what we've been seeing with our solid waste fund, while sewer and water have remained stable. And I guess we'll just see what happens when we work on next year's budget. Water fund, you can probably assume based on this, we're not gonna recommend or request a rate increase. Would you agree, Lenny?
Good news. Can we end the meeting now and go home on a good note?
I wish.
Okay.
Thank you again.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. Community linkage. Anything to share? You hearing from the public? No phone calls? Nobody stopping you? Randy, if you want to put those pictures up. Just one thing I have to share with you. If you remember, I told you that North Iron Church volunteers were going to, they had asked us for some projects, if we knew of anything that needed to be done. So this board didn't offer too much. You know, we talked about the corridor and stuff, but some of that was kind of off limits. So I did check with the planning commission when I went to that last meeting, and they gave me a few ideas. So I mentioned to Jessica, let me get her last name, Gertzmeyer. She was coordinating they call it cleanup day, I think. That's probably not exactly right. But every year on usually the first Sunday of the month in June, they have an all-out community, whatever the community needs. They were also painting the second half of the Marquette City Arena on Sunday. They've been up to Lance, they'll go over to Newberry. They had roughly 250 of their church member volunteers out doing different projects that day. So between Jess and I, we figured that, I mentioned to her about our signs. There's 6 in the township in various locations coming into the township. And they elected to try 3 of them. So while they didn't paint the front, they did do the post and the boxes in the back. And whatever else, you know, this is the one over by the golf course. And this is, I did get names. This is from left to right, Christian, Caitlin, Marissa, Carly, and Kendra Palamaki. I'm not sure, they might be from Negaunee, I'm not positive. I didn't visit with these folks too long because I was trying to get all 3. I was gonna go to the US 41 box first, and I thought, well, that's the biggest one. I'll save that till last, and then I can get those people's name and picture. But lo and behold, I started at the golf course and nobody was there, so I went out to Wright Street. And Hope Carlson, Tom Carlson, and Mike Hardy were there. And they were on the ball. I think it's Mike on the right, who's the painter, the builder. He was a, he built the We Energies building. So he's a big builder, but he did come prepared. He had 2 ladders, a bunch of cement block braces, because that's quite a hill. They didn't know what they were going to be tackling. And he brought a weed eater and just totally took out all the grass. The mosquitoes were still really bad there. But they did a great job. They were just kind of starting, painting and staining that particular sign. That was a really rough hill for them to be on because of the slope. And because I started here, they were asking about the sign, and I said, I think Carl Meyer may have done these signs. I think we commissioned him years ago. And there was nothing on the Wright Street sign, but there was on the golf course sign. He had signed it, Carl Meyer. And you can tell that the signs are all the same. So I'm guessing, we could have asked Randy, I didn't think about it, that he may have done all 6. So these 3 signs in the front, the face don't look too bad at all, but the supports and everything need work. Now, I got this picture before it was stained, and now when you drive by, it's beautiful. And I did leave a message for Jess to find out who did it, but she hasn't gotten back to me, because I want to give these folks credit for their volunteer service. The church also provided all the paint and stain. We didn't have any expense with this at all. And they want to look at the other three next year. They did point out, and I had already talked to Lenny and John about this, that the one out by AT&T's building is in rough shape. I haven't been out there. I mean, she stopped and took a picture, so she saw it up close. So that may need some work or be rebuilt, or I don't know. So I suggested to John that maybe Building and Grounds check those, all 6 signs every year, like in the spring, and just see what they need in case, they need to be rebuilt. Linda, you do this one, right? You work on that with your mom?
The flowers,
The
not with
flowers?
my mom anymore,
Oh,
but
no?
yeah.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, the flowers or the plantings or whatever's in there. A couple of the other ones have plantings too. The one at 550, out on 550 doesn't. And the golf course one does. Not that that matters, but
Maybe.
they're all different signs.
Maybe somebody in listening tonight would like to,
I'd love to put some flowers out there every year.
yeah, maybe somebody would adopt the one out on 550.
Yeah, I don't know if that has a box. I'm not sure. I think 41's does. I know it has a bunch of stickers on it, Rotary and Lions Club and stuff. There's about 6 of them. So that front may need to be done. But I definitely wanted to give kudos to the North Iron Church. They're not in the mall yet. They can't move in and have services until everything's done. They're working on the utility side of it right now, but they will be in the township. This year they expect to be having services out there.
So can you have us all sign a thank you and
Yeah,
send it?
that's a great idea. I should have brought it tonight. Yep. I'll stick it in each one of your mailboxes or something. Okay, good idea. So that's all I had to share. It's been a quiet week, a couple weeks. I was at camp for a week, so nothing much was going on. I want to hang on a second till John gets back before we start our new additions to the agenda, our vehicles.
So-
Do you want to preface it, Lenny, with anything? What were you going to say, Linda?
So, Stantec's presentation had underneath the roof on the water department building as $100,000, but that's incorrect.
Well, it's 100,000 out of the water side.
It's a
So
shared.
It's about, I think it's gonna be about 160 to 180, so it's 50/50. Half comes out of the water department.
So
half
it would
comes
be
out of-
less. So this was just a proposed amount of money that we were gonna spend, right?
Yeah, it was just, when we were
Okay.
developing this was kind of back in the winter before we had
Yeah,
a.
yeah. I'm just
exact
looking
idea.
for where we can find some more money. 10,000 is 10,000.
Yeah.
Maybe more than that.
Maybe more than that, you're right.
So-
Okay, Linda, go ahead.
So I can preface this whole thing basically with, I don't know if some people were out here, I think it was yesterday, our red truck sat out in front of the doors here all day. And that's basically because it broke down right in front of the doors out here. We also have another truck that was making some funny sounds. We brought it up. The engine was knocking and it wasn't running very good. And we think that that might have some engine damage to it. Lifters and stuff are making a bunch of racket. So we basically went down 2 trucks here within about a week or 2. And the red truck was a 2005. The F-150 was a 2008. The average age of our fleet is like 10 years old. So they're starting to get kind of old, and they're getting to the point where they're going to start breaking, and eventually it's going to cost more money to fix this stuff than what it's worth. So it's kind of time to start looking at some newer vehicles. So that's kind of where we came up with this. Basically, it just kind of threw us into a tizzy with 2 trucks going down at one time. And then we figured we better start looking for something, especially with the supply chain issues that are out there. I think we drove around a few different car lots and even looking online just to kind of get an idea of new vehicles. And I think, like John said, we might be generous saying that there was 10 brand new vehicles on any lot. And out of those 10 vehicles, they were like the highest end vehicles that there were. So there's nothing available out there. when we did go to Fox Marquette Chevrolet, we did find a couple very good used vehicles there. One is a 2021 Silverado. It's a GM recertified vehicle, and the warranties that they're gonna add on to it are actually, we're gonna end up, I believe, with more warranty with the 2021 than we would with the 2022, just because of the way it's certified and with the powertrain and all that stuff. The only issue is it's a red truck, so we couldn't find any white trucks, so we're gonna kind of have if we did get something like this, we'll have a kind of a bunch of different colors in our fleet. The second vehicle that we found there was a 2018 Colorado. Basically, that one would be used for the building and grounds. We figured that we would probably need a little bit of a smaller truck, especially with the building and grounds when they're throwing their garbage bags or their tools or whatever. It's nice to be able to reach in the back and get them without having to get a step ladder and get up in the back of the truck. The Silverado for the public works or for water and sewer is good for carrying our water turn on and turn off keys and other equipment that we haul around with those. So that's basically where we're at. Both these vehicles on the lot, they're both GM certified, which means that they do come with warranties. The Silverado actually has, I forgot what the warranty ended up would be on that one. It was more than the factory warranty, or like a brand new one, plus the powertrain. The Colorado.
It adds 2 years beyond the factory.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a really good deal. The Colorado is also certified, and that will have a bumper-to-bumper warranty for 1 year, and it also will have a powertrain warranty on it for a few years. I think it's like 3 years or something like that. So that's, warranty was a big thing for us, looking to make sure that we still had warranty and stuff on in case something happens. So that's where we're at. The first item, kind of going backwards, the fire department had transferred a truck over to the general fund. That was a 2005 Chevy Silverado 2500. It's a great truck, nice truck, but it's a big truck, and it was kind of too much truck for what the building and grounds needs would be. And it's also diesel. So we did approach Fox Chevy to maybe give us an assessment on how much they would give us on a trade-in on that vehicle against one of these other vehicles that we were potentially looking at. And they gave us it's a 2005, and it's still at $15,000 that they would give us as a trade-in, which is really good. So basically, we would want to trade in that vehicle against the Colorado to help offset that cost. So the first item that's before you would be giving us permission to basically declare that as surplus and use it as a trade-in.
John, do you want to add anything?
I think Lenny summarized it well. We worked well as a team. We worked together on this feverishly pretty much all day Monday. From the moment we realized they were down 2 trucks, we jumped in the township car. We went as far as Negaunee. We looked online as far as Houghton. We actually had looked at getting quotes from the dealership in Houghton, and that was when Fox Marquette was able to get the certified status on both of these vehicles, meaning we can close this deal with one purchase for 2 vehicles from the same dealer who happens to be right down the road, where we know we can get the vehicle to if we have any issues.
In the township, too.
It's a township business. We've done business with them. In fact, the truck that we're looking on at trading in here is being replaced by a vehicle that the fire department just received that they ordered about a year ago. So us looking at a brand new vehicle, we're talking a year out to get right now. This is basically, they're holding it for us until tomorrow morning. If you decide no, somebody else will buy it tomorrow, I'm sure, both of these trucks. That's how fast they're going. You can't sleep on it anymore. They agreed to hold 2 vehicles. We're kind of using our trade-in sort of as the collateral on this, right? And the other thing is Lenny had $50,000 in his budget to purchase 1 truck this year already. So we're a little bit short on the total cash flow, but we're also looking at bringing in a second newer vehicle than what we would be getting from the fire hall. So we're short about $17,000, I believe. which gets divided 3 ways. Water, sewer, and general fund each would pay an equal share of that. And you just heard, the water fund's in good shape. We know the sewer fund can handle its share. The general fund is probably in as good shape as it's going to be with all of these other revenues we just had, so. I guess that's about all I have. This is truly an emergency, which is why we asked to add it to the agenda, such late notice.
And the 2 vehicles that we're replacing, you know, potentially maybe the red truck, the little red truck might be able to be repaired, but we probably don't want to keep it for too much longer because it is 2005 and it has had issues. So we still might be able to get some value for those 2 vehicles that aren't working.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask.
Yeah.
What is the outcome of those 2 vehicles then? To
Well,
offset?
the other 2005 Colorado, when we put our reader on it, came up as a crank position sensor, which could maybe be fixed, but in the past, when we were getting that code before, the computer had issues with it. I'm not saying that's the case, but we probably could get that one running again, but I think that, you know, I think it's outlived its usefulness. With the F-150, that one is to be determined, but it sounds like it's engine problems.
Do you feel there's any value or much value to either one of them then that can offset some of the cost, or?
There could be, but I don't know what it would be. And maybe if the one gets running, maybe a couple $1,000. I'm not.
So
not
those
really
would
sure.
just go for sale and bids?
We would probably have to come back and get them.
We'd put a for sale sign on it in the parking lot, we'd advertise it on the website and Facebook like
Yep.
we've done in the past and take the highest bidder if you agreed to declare it as surplus
Yep.
like we're asking for this 2005 on the agenda, or, yeah, in the packet.
So I just have one
Ernie
question.
was first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just have a question on the, turning in this 2005 for 15,000. How is that reflected back onto the 2 cost factors here?
Well, with the, primarily, I mean, we could put it against either one, but primarily that one's gonna be going against the Colorado price, because the Colorado will primarily be used for building and grounds and general fund. The the truck was originally transferred into the general fund, so that's why we're using that against the Colorado, which will also be used for building and grounds.
I'm looking at 20,000 here. Is that before or after the 15,000?
That is after.
So you're talking.
It was like
35,000.
yeah.
Okay, that's, I just want to get that cleared
Yeah.
up from that too, okay.
Okay, Linda?
So my question is, it was the fire department's truck and they sold it to the general fund, gave it to the general fund?
Sold it.
The general fund purchased it last year. It was supposed to go in building and grounds fleet,
Okay.
but it's way more truck than they need for, on a daily basis.
I heard
That's
that
the
part.
issue.
So the general fund purchased the truck and now the general fund is selling the truck or giving the truck?
Trading the truck
Trading it in for another, giving it to another
towards the,
department?
no.
No,
Trade-
I don't mean I mean giving the trade-in to another department.
No.
No.
The truck was purchased by the general fund from the fire fund.
Right.
The truck will be traded in on a new general fund truck, which
Okay.
is building and grounds.
Okay, just so people understand that
Yep.
part, because.
All of that money is staying within one department.
Okay.
The only difference is water and sewer are gonna pay each a third of the overage over the total budget that they already have, because they will end up using it once in a while.
Right.
Okay, all right. Yeah, and I think in the future, we need to plan to replace trucks
Yep,
in so many years.
In our CIP, we do have it actually starting next year and try to do 1 truck
Well,
per year
yeah, but
coming up.
we haven't done that in the past.
Right, and that's.
Yeah, so I am very supportive of getting this all down in writing so people can understand it, as you alluded to.
Okay, John?
I think this is an excellent proposal as presented, and we have a couple of motions to make, but I'll make the first one. Deem the 2005 2500 Chevy Silverado as surplus and allow this truck to be used as a trade-in for the future vehicle purchase.
I'll support.
Okay, motion and support. Any follow-up questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Do we want two motions here?
Yes. On 8B, Lynn, I will make the motion to waive the competitive bidding, which is on our procurement policy, which we have the authority to do. This board does. Waive the competitive bidding in the interest of available inventory and purchase the 2021 Chevy Silverado and the 2018 Chevy Colorado for Fox Marquette Chevrolet in the amount of $65,338.00.
Support.
Motion and support. Any other questions and comments?
Just that,
Clear as mud?
again, to the residents, me and the supervisor and this board really take this, these expenditures really seriously, and if it wasn't a true emergency, it would not have been added, but when you're down two in your fleet, it's rough, and we need to keep our level of service up, so,
Especially in today's world where there are not that many vehicles out there.
correct.
I think our staff has done a great job to find some vehicles with some good warranties and
Thank you to Jim
Commend you guys.
Grunstrom too, by the way.
Pardon me?
Jim Grunstrom is who we worked with. Longtime businessman in the township. He no longer owns the business, but he remains there, and he's great to work with. That's who Dan worked with on the truck that the fire hall just took into their possession recently, so appreciate Jim's efforts on this.
And you guys spent almost all of Monday, I think, working on that. And then the extended warranties, and that's a big thing for
Right.
me. With as much as these vehicles are gonna get used, it's not like me driving a truck to the car, to the store, back and forth to Walmart. These trucks are gonna get used, so
Yep.
those warranties are precious. Ernie?
Now, you had mentioned that they're holding these for us. That means at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, you're gonna have to get on the horn with them and say,
Right,
it's all taken care of.
yes, yep.
Jim and Lenny might be racing each other to the phone to call each other. Because I would guess there's probably interested parties in both of those vehicles.
Can you text them tonight?
Yeah.
Probably.
Yep,
Yep.
I would text them tonight.
yep, I will do that.
It's positive, and we'll talk to you more right away in the morning.
Well, and we've already put Kim on notice that she's probably gonna be cutting a check tomorrow. We didn't know how much for, because you could have agreed to one, maybe not the other, but I think, we did the best we could under the given circumstances, and we got lucky to find two at the same location,
What
really.
time do you want me to sign check?
8:01.
No. It's already signed, Ernie.
And then there won't be any other, I know you had asked a question about additional costs. We already have the stickers, the Marquette Township logo stickers, we have them at our office. And there might be minimal costs for putting like the caution beacon and stuff, but I think we even have some of those too.
And I think one of the trucks probably needs a spray-in bed liner, but that's,
Yes, yeah.
That's,
maybe both of them. I didn't look in.
The
in
one,
the-
just the one didn't have it, the other one did have it, so.
that extends the life, period.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
But we might be able to cover that in our O&M budget too. We'll take a closer look at that before we do it.
Anything else? Where are we with that now? Did we do a motion?
We have a motion and a second.
That's what I thought, I'd written it down. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
John caught me as I was walking in the door Monday. Stop.
Right now.
Don't even go to your desk. Stop.
Make sure you get the text going.
All right, committee updates. Planning Commission.
The Planning Commission met on Wednesday, May 25th. We approved a short-term rental unit located at 2282 Cherry Street in Marquette, Michigan. We also had some discussion about some proposed tiny home residence on some land located at County Road 550. There'll be a public hearing on that on June 22nd at 7 p.m. So that was pretty much it.
Roads Committee met tonight. Anything you want to share?
No, we talked about Grand Street, little issue they have down there, John and was down there with Lenny. Hopefully we can have some kind of a resolution and fix that up and try to help it. It's not gonna cure it, but it'll make a lot of difference, I think. Forestville Road and Marquette County Road together a little bit. All depends on what happens up there to what we can do. And clear site intersections, I asked the members of, let me know which items are, what roads are having a problem with. We come up with about 3 tonight. And then we'll bring them up to John, and then we can talk to the Marquette County Road Commission. And last time they worked with the Public Works and they cleaned out some of the intersections, so that was good.
Okay. We don't need events.
I want to just add to that real quick. We did get a call from a resident in Huron Woods, might have been yesterday, in the midst of all this vehicle scrambling we did, about the drains at the bottom of the hill being plugged up. Now that we have this hydro excavator, we may be able to help with that a little bit more. We're just going to be careful that we don't commit ourselves for life to some of these projects. If it makes sense to do it while the road commission can't get to it, we'll try to help them out. But we want to make sure that the public understands we are not a stormwater utility. We are a water and wastewater utility. So if we do it, it's to help our partner, the road commission. It's not signing up to do it every year. So we'll do it where we can. And I think to what Pete just said, in Trowbridge too, we already do some of that as well. Sometimes it's just shoveling a little bit of dirt out of the spillway to get water off the road. That just demonstrates our Public Works Department's willingness to help where it's needed, so.
Send the road commission a bill.
What kind of relationship did you want to maintain with them?
It's hard because what happens is Trowbridge Park is up and down, you know, we got hills and valleys and everything goes down to the bottom. The Huron Wood, some of that problem there is you're dragging the water, there's the sand and the rocks from up on top of the hill, comes right around and plugs up that thing. Just even on the end of Huron Street, it puddles up right down there. So tomorrow I'll be down there with a little shovel, just clean it out so the water goes down into the drain, you know. But small things like that makes a difference. And water just runs downhill. And
I sent a bill for my road improvement plan, and I didn't get paid for that either, so.
I didn't see a bill.
No, I sent it to the county.
Oh, all right, good. Good place to send it.
We may be working with the road commission, don't worry,
you know,
in the near future.
they're willing to help, you know, now and then, but I mean, you know, their biggest thing is they don't have the money, they don't have the people, they don't have this, they don't have that, you know. But it's just, we want to take care of our residents, and like I said, hills and valleys, and that's where we have all the problem when it rains real hard. Granite Street is a long-term fix, you know, but they're at the end, they're in the bottom of the run, so.
Well, I have a thank you for the road commission. They did take down the pass with care and do not pass signs on Ontario. So they will be, next time they paint the stripes, they'll double it, so.
No passing zone the entire length of
No
Ontario.
passing zone on there, no passing zone on Warner. Is that correct? I don't see any signs
No,
about
That's
passing.
correct. It's double yellow the
yeah.
entire length
So,
already.
So thank you for them for doing that so quickly, really. So don't
It
pass,
was a good idea, it was a good suggestion.
yeah. Yeah, don't pass, and I'll be happy when they mark the bike lane, because people have no idea where to drive on those roads.
Bicycles, when there isn't a designated path, drive with traffic. People, I saw 3 different people, 3 different bikes going the wrong directions. If you're on a bicycle and you're in the road, you ride with traffic. If you're a walker, you walk facing traffic, not, because if a car comes up behind you, you can't see him to get out of the way. Think about that, you know?
Well, you got the same thing
have
with
to
a
see the
bike.
cars.
You got the same thing with a bike, but you have to realize that if there's a bike ahead of you, you have to stay
Behind 'em.
3 feet away,
Well-
going around them.
Yeah, going around them. But otherwise, if there's traffic and the bike is there, you can't just pass him. He's entitled to be there just like the car is. People don't realize that. And they'll yell at you for being in the road. People will roll down their window and say, "Get off the road!" Well, the bike's entitled to be there. So,
Oh, yeah.
This is a never-ending education
That's why I'm
process.
saying it.
And I would also say that in rural areas, it is more difficult than in urban areas.
yeah.
I also think, though, Michigan drivers are some of the worst for cyclists. I rode some farm roads in northern Indiana over Memorial Day weekend. No shoulders on these roads. I was a little bit scared at first, until the first car actually slowed down and waited for opposing traffic to clear before they passed me. In Michigan, I would have been run off the road, 9 times out of 10.
Which is
So-
why we work so hard to get our non-motorized pathways in the township and all these connectors.
And we need to educate the public, and the public needs to understand, if they do kill a cyclist, it's on them. And we don't want to ever consider that kind of thing. Let's convince them to follow the law, give them 3 feet. And if you can't give clear 3 feet because of opposing traffic, wait until the opposing traffic clears and then give them 3 feet. And honestly, half a lane would be much appreciated. Cyclists have the right to use the entire lane if necessary, and can ride 2 abreast.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah, because motorcycles can too.
Anyway, that's the soapbox, right?
That's good. No, that's good information. The more we educate our public about stuff, the better. That's part of our job.
Maybe we should put that in a monthly then, just a little
Yeah, we could put
quirk
it on
in
the
there
back.
about that,
If you look at your calendar, I put more recycling stuff on it this month again, just to keep it up with the batteries and stuff. Don't put your blue recycling, tote out if it's not full. Keep it, leave it in your garage, just keep filling it up. I didn't put mine out Wednesday. Just wait till it's full, it makes it easier for them. Why would you wanna take all that manpower to just, put a little bit in your truck? That's a waste.
Well, you don't have to worry about how much you put in it because it's all done by mechanical, so fill it up.
Yeah.
Right. To clarify what Pete's saying, it costs money to take the time to tip those carts. So make sure they're tipping a cart for a full cart, not a foot or 2 on the bottom. That's part of the issue we're having with our solid waste fund.
That's why-
Unintended consequences of more recycling does actually cost the hauler more to load it in the truck.
And that's why you had a price increase not too long ago, because of the labor.
Yeah. Okay, we kind of jumped ahead of, just announcements and stuff, but we don't have any public. We have one public. Any comments? Questions? Okay, thank you. Okay,
We do have 2 announcements.
all right, go for it, Randy.
2 announcements I have is, we'll be getting your new voter cards out hopefully sooner than later, because we're all in the county. I have to do that due to the township being in the county, whole county commission district now. So every voter will get a new card in the township. And we also will be getting the people that are on the permanent absent voter list will be getting their applications hopefully within a week or 2. And we will have ballots to send out June 23rd, as the county clerk said that she would deliver them to us by then. So, and on the applications that get mailed out to the residents that are absent voters, there's 2 boxes on there. You can check both. One's for August, one's for November. If you check both, we'll not send you another application, but you'll get your ballot in November. It's kind of a dual form, so it saves us money by not having to send you another one, so. So when you get that form, it's gonna be like a mailer. It's gonna be folded, and then you can just fold it back and then send it in or bring it in. And hopefully I'll get that out by next week, so. I think August 2nd, or 3rd is our election, I have to look, but it's creeping up fast, so. The Saturday before the election, again, the township office will be open from 8 AM to 4 PM. August 2nd, yeah, that's what I thought it was, so
So we must have changed our meeting to the 3rd then?
we did,
Okay.
yeah.
I know we changed a couple like May and this one.
November, we,
Aside from-
we don't, because the November election is the latest it possibly can be, and it's actually the Tuesday after our meeting, so hopefully there's no snowstorms. So that's all I have from the clerk's office. We had a training yesterday, where we had a state official up, but had it here, which is very nice. And she covered all the things that are preparatory before the August and November election and what we're looking for. So far, no changes from the legislator as far as any changes in the law for absentee ballots or anything. Nothing has come forward as of yet, so probably will be after this cycle elections. That's it.
Okay, any other announcements? Okay, managers report.
All right, you have my written report, but I'll cover the 2 items on the report individually, and I'm gonna start with the second one first, because the first item on that, my report for this meeting has some supplemental information I'd like to share with you that came out after this packet was put together. Things are moving very fast in this township, and we're not trying to slow them down. We're trying to make sure that the ship has continued to be steered in the right direction. So this native species pilot project, I think we've talked to you about it in the past. Just giving you an update, we do have an MDOT permit to do the pilot project, which is the first 3rd acre of the median of US 41. It's the first green stretch east of Commerce Drive. It's a very convenient spot for us to monitor because it's gonna be a 3-year project. We have to mow it, keep it mowed so we can keep any invasive species cut back, so that when we do go to overseed in the fall at the proper time using assistance from the Conservation District, this native seed will hopefully have a chance to germinate and take over. And then eventually that portion of the median becomes maintenance-free by the time we're done. If all of this works out, then we figure out a way to do the rest of the corridor. I can't tell you who's gonna pay for it yet, but I will tell you, Jason McCarthy did put together a mini grant application that would cover the cost of the seed for this pilot project. Again, this is another moment of opportunity that Lynn seized, sent it to staff. Jason dropped what he was doing last Monday morning, got it in by the deadline. He first talked to the county planning department about it before doing it, and they said it's a good project, so there's a chance that we'll get the seed paid for. We just have to cover the labor and the equipment.
And our people will be working that day, and the Conservation District volunteered to lay the seed.
They will spread the seed for us. We're gonna have to do the mowing, we're gonna have to put the signs up, do the advance notice anytime we're gonna go and do work out there. That's fine, that's minimal, especially if it never has to be mowed again after that. The road commission would still do one pass along the shoulder, just because you don't want anything too tall getting too close to the roadway itself. But it'll be an interesting project. We'll see what happens there. On to the potential future development. We've talked about it in various terms off and on in several meetings now. We have had a pre-application meeting with the prospective developer, and it is on Forestville Road. Unfortunately, the traffic that would be created by this development would cause significant concerns for an already failed intersection in the township, and that is Forestville Road, Commerce Drive, Wright Street. It's County Road 492, right down here. It is the worst intersection on the county road network. The developer was willing to work with the road commission to try to find additional funding to improve that intersection to the tune of $4 to $5 million. The road commission looked at it and said, we don't want you to spend $5 million on that intersection because it's not gonna completely fix the problem. They came up with another plan, $14 million. They put in a funding request at the state level for that project. Randy, do you have that file, or did you not get it on your computer?
I did not.
Okay. There was a funding request that went to Wayne Schmidt's office yesterday, as well as Sarah Cambenzi and Ed McBroom's office, from the Road Commission requesting $10 million in funds for infrastructure improvements in our township that take significant pressure off of a failed intersection in the township. What it does is it builds a bypass road around that area to get the intersection in a safer location. Oops, I'm sorry. In this packet, which I've got it scanned, I can email it to everybody, but I wanted you, the township board, to hear about it before it went to any committees or anything else. Jim Iwaniki wanted to make sure that the news got out in the township before it got out anywhere else. So you're hearing it first, other than myself and a couple of other staff members that have been involved in this planning process. There are some significant challenges with this plan, including how the township comes up with a $475,000 match. That's the way it's presented in here right now. The Road Commission had an idea that makes sense that you need to consider, so I'm planting the seed now. I don't want an answer today because you all have to think about it. There are implications to it. There is a specific parcel that needs to be acquired for this new road that the current owner has said he's willing to not develop in the interest of the township, knowing that this plan is in the works. But he doesn't want to sell the property, he wants to trade it. So the Road Commission asked the township, do you have any property you'd be willing to trade this landowner? And I said, we have a parcel, but I can't commit to you that the township will want to trade for it. We have a 5-acre parcel on the other side of 492 for a critical piece for the new intersection of this project. You could commit to trading the parcel, and that would be the township's commitment to this $14 million project, of which they're requesting $10 million in state funds, using almost $500,000 in a local match from us through a parcel swap with a property owner that's willing to maybe do it. I don't know if she knows the specific property that's in question, but they would prefer to swap property than sell property. Think about it. It's worth considering. There are opportunity costs with doing that, in that we had looked at that parcel as a $500,000 contribution to the debt on this building and the fire hall. But if this bypass road gets built, what is the future potential development and revenue to the township as a result? When you see what the bypass road looks like, where was the largest commercial development in the township in the past 10 years that never happened because of access issues? Goes right through it. It's in our master plan. That's why the Road Commission chose that option, because our master plan already identified it. So everything lines up on this, except right now we don't know if all the money will. There's no greater time than now to ask for it, because there's all of this stimulus money, infrastructure stimulus money. We'll see. Maybe we'll get lucky. Maybe this request brings $14 million worth of infrastructure improvements to the township. And oh, by the way, in areas where it makes sense to put sewer and water, that's part of the 10 million. That our sewer and water customers wouldn't have to pay. That makes neighboring parcels development ready. Think about it.
Didn't Jim Iwaniki go down to Lansing too?
He was in Lansing on Monday. And he called me at lunchtime, well, I was gone to lunch, I called him back, he was finishing his lunch, and he said, "Are you okay with me sharing this with Schmidt's office?" And I said, "I have no reason to tell you not to, because what you're proposing matches what our master plan suggests we do." He said, "If this land swap deal doesn't work, we'll figure out what the township's commitment ends up being, if anything." So nobody's tying anyone's hands right now to any commitments, but I really do think you should think about, is a $500,000 parcel swap valuable enough for a $14 million infrastructure project in the township? So the other $4 million of this, a lot of that will be County Road Commission staff itself doing a lot of the design work. Some of it is additional acquisitions that a lot of it the Road Commission's gonna have to front themselves. So I didn't calculate the percentage, but a $500,000 on 14 is not bad, especially if you don't even have to come up with cash. And it's a parcel that we've already declared surplus, not we, you. So it's a thought.
The only other little caveat with that is that, as John said, we were gonna use the proceeds of that land sale to pay down or off these two buildings. And we do have a balloon coming up, too, on both of them. I think next year, or it was 7 years.
It's 23 or 24, yeah.
Next year or the year after. So we may have to refinance or do something there. So that's part of the equation, too, that we're gonna have to consider.
But we need land that we can, develop in that and have people move in and, pay taxes and that, so.
Yeah.
And not that much around here, as we well know, with Oak Hills and different other places, so if somebody's willing to do it, I think we seriously should take a look at it.
I agree.
Be a
If
good
we
move.
have the opportunity, yeah, if they're willing. Pretty.
Don't let the numbers fool you.
Listening to what
Don't get
John
scared.
said, that, true, there's a land swap coming in, and there's some dollars that we had talked about. But looking at long-term, if this comes to pass, and you indicated that water and sewer would be part of the development at this point in time?
Along the roadway that they're talking about building, so that anything, here's what the ultimate plan is. It's to split Forestville Road up into two segments. The first segment would be from 492 to just past the entrance of Huron Woods. Okay? So that anyone that's already on that segment continues to have the ability to exit at the current intersection. Anyone beyond that would head west along past the backside of Meyer down to the Up the Sky property and back out to County Road 492 at that point. Okay, so it's a little bit longer route, but to a far safer intersection. So it leaves some concern for the Huron Woods people, right? In that there's still an unsafe intersection, but it takes a lot of pressure off from anything north of them, in that the traffic can't go through because it's cul-de-saced off. There's gates there for emergency access that are activated with push bumpers or whatever, so fire and EMS can still get through, police or sheriff if necessary. All of those concerns, the developer's willing to work with us on. The key is, if this doesn't happen and the development comes in, all that traffic is gonna be forced all the way out to 550.
I think the direction it's going right now, if this comes to pass, it's gonna open up a great amount of land for development. It's gonna take a while for it to develop, but once it starts moving, because you can see what's going on around us, the land isn't there. We have the land here. If we have infrastructure there, it makes it so much easier for a developer to come in and start building, and our tax base will go up and we will get revenue that way. It may take some few years to do it, but it will happen.
I wouldn't be able to guess what the payback would be if the property that was provided access as a result of this project were developed right away. But our assessor could probably give us some sort of estimate based on what had been proposed in the past. Keep in mind, what was proposed in the past couldn't happen because the parcel was landlocked. It still is. But this road would eliminate that issue. This land swap being a key part of that deal.
But going back to land swap, if that takes effect, the individual we're talking about on that 5 acres was not gonna sit on that 5 acres. They may be able to develop it faster than us, but all of a sudden we got more taxable property there, no
Yep.
matter what happens in that. Because right now, it's not taxable. We're not getting any taxes on it at all. So if we make that swap, now it becomes part of an asset to the township in that.
And on both ends, really.
Yes, on both ends.
Both
yes.
ends of the swap. Yeah, so, there's opportunity costs, but there's also significant opportunity. And I think the road commission has really identified what the long-term plan needs to be, and that's eliminate the pressure on the failed intersection so that the people that have to use it can use it as safely as possible. And keep in mind, we've committed $150,000 to repave the portion that would remain open from 492. So the rest of the road that never got touched would be done. You could probably improve a little bit of the geometry on that leg in the process with that 150,000. Not a lot, but the pressure would be off too, because the only traffic going there then would be however many homes are in Huron Woods and then the few in between there and 492. So, I can't give you all the answers. I can give you plenty to think about. The public out there that watches the news tonight will have plenty to think about. Jim Iwaniki was ready for the public to hear about this, so now they probably will.
Good deal.
And thanks for listening. I think that's a very important part of what's happening in the township. And I think ultimately, now that you know all the different pieces here, why we're being very careful to make sure we don't jeopardize anything in this process, because there's a lot of things that really have to happen to make things work. And we want the development to be smart development for the township, not something that we're going to regret for the rest of our lives. So, that's it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good
Any
job.
questions for the manager?
Lot to chew on.
Yes. Okay. I don't think I have anything for future agendas yet.
I'm gonna do the motions first.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Okay, before I do the motions, I just have another announcement, is that the road committees now has changed their meeting time from 5:30 to 3:30 in the afternoon. And I'll reprint our schedule that's on the door out there.
That's on the
First,
meeting.
yeah, first, is it the first first meeting of the month, which is the same as our board meeting. It'll be at 3:30 instead of 5:30. Okay, so motions for tonight. We approve the consent agenda as presented. The regular agenda, the second motion was approved with the 2 amendments for 8A and 8B, which for 8A was for the surplus of the truck to trade in, and 8B was to buy the 2 trucks. And that was approved as amended. Third motion was to, let me get that here, was to approve the, or deem the 2005 2500 Chevy Silverado as surplus and allow the truck to be traded in for the future vehicle purpose. And that was approved. And 8B was to purchase the 2021 Chevy Silverado and 2018 Chevy Colorado from Fox Marquette Chevrolet for $65,338, and that was approved. Okay.
Okay. Future agendas are coming up.
The only thing I am gonna put on there next time is we are going to have, I do have the numbers now for the library resolution and ballot language, so that will go on the next agenda for approval for the November ballot.
Okay. Any comments from the board about anything?
How about the iron on the trails? Is that
That's
going-
done, that's done and sent in. That'll be in the August one. That was done.
Anything else? Maybe
Um,
just a motion.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second that.
Wait a minute.
Our next meeting is June 21st. Did you have a question?
I have a question.
Uh-oh.
Okay, well, nobody was saying
I don't want to
anything.
interrupt him because he wants to get out of here.
Oh.
Where are we at in the roof on the Public Works building?
Contract is signed, materials are ordered.
See you next year.
No. It's gonna be done before winter.
I hope so.
We're all doing a little bit of this because Public Works doesn't want to have to clear that roof for one more winter. Yeah, we'll have to if snow accumulates past a certain height, but they don't want to have to clean it after every 6 or 8 inch snowfall.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. 8:22, we are adjourned.